Just 2 days ago, we were in T-shirts, and now we're loading salt trucks, so.
Yeah, you don't see this in Arizona.
You are a long way from Orlando right now.
Yes, very, very long and cold.
Tonight, a tale of two coasts dealing with a lot of rain and snow while the Northeast is shoveling out from the first major snowfall of the season. Northern California is bracing for the possibility of life-threatening flooding. I'm Gadi Schwartz, and this is Stay Tuned Now. And storms on both coasts are leading to hundreds of thousands of power outages and travel delays right before the busy Thanksgiving holiday rush. Rain and snow coming down right now in parts of the Northeast after weeks of record drought conditions and wildfires, with parts of New Jersey and Pennsylvania seeing as much as 2 feet of snow. And it's also creating a mess out there on the roads. At least one person in Pennsylvania was killed in a crash because of a snowstorm. The snow is also making an impact in the Midwest, especially in Ohio. Last night's game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns went from 0 to 100 real quick. Just look at the difference a few hours makes there. The Browns even celebrating their win with a good old snowball fight. Back here on the West Coast, days of major storm systems are putting millions in Northern California at risk of heavy flooding and landslides. There's already been a number of rescues of people stuck in high floodwaters and piles of snow and icy roads in the Sierra Mountains. We're sending big rigs sliding off the road and practically laying flat there. We've got team coverage tonight. Bill Cairns will have the forecast. Sam Brock is in Pennsylvania. But first, let's go to Chase Kane in Mendocino County, California. And Chase, what's the biggest threat right now?
Gadi, in parts of Northern California in the higher elevations, there's still a winter storm watch in place. So they're still getting snow in some of the higher elevations. We have a light rain here in Mendocino County. But you probably see behind me, this river has risen 25 feet in 48 hours. That's how much rain the Navarro River in Mendocino County got. I mean, this river came up really quickly from just a trickle to high enough to actually spill out of its banks and flood Highway 128 here. That highway is still closed at this hour. The good news is that the Navarro River is starting to recede just a bit. So hopefully overnight tonight, this river may go down enough to be able to reopen the highway. But there are still some rivers in the area, especially in Napa and Sonoma County, where the water levels are still rising. So there are several river flood warnings in effect. And that's kind of been the case, is that there's been spotty patches of rivers and streams overtopping their banks and flooding roads, which have had to be closed. We've also had a few small landslides and rock slides in the earlier hours of today, which also closed some roads as well. That's actually why Sonoma County had several districts where they closed school today. They didn't want students or school buses out on the roads. A few people also, especially the overnight early morning hours, had to be rescued from some of these fast rising waters as people drive through that, which of course is always the thing, law enforcement, and we say on TV, please don't do that. But a few people did. Fortunately, only injuries here in the state of California, no deaths, which is certainly some good news considering all the rain. 12 inches of rain in this area, Gadi. Some people got as much as 17 inches of rain in just a few days.
Wow. Is 12 inches, 17 inches? I mean, put this into context. How much rain is that for the year here?
I'm going to give you a scientific answer and then a non-scientific answer. The actual scientific answer is that Santa Rosa in Sonoma County got about 12 inches of rain. They got that in 3 days. That's as much rain as they typically get in October, November, and December combined. So 3 months of rain in 3 days. Now, the less scientific answer involves this river, the Navarro River, because it goes by a few apple orchards in the area. And I was talking with a guy that's lived here his whole life, and he said, yes, this was a flood for sure. But he said, it's really a flood when the water comes up high enough to start pulling apples out of the trees. And he said, you can literally just see, a stream of apples flowing down the river. So that, he said, is when it's a real flood, but definitely pretty high this afternoon.
Wow. Chase Kane, thank you. Now let's check in with NBC's Sam Brock, who's in Pennsylvania tracking the first major snowfall in the Northeast. Hey there, Sam.
Well, Gadi, good evening. The people that we talked to here in Scranton, Pennsylvania, really kind of feel blindsided. Not that it snowed. They knew it was going to snow. They weren't expecting this much of it. 6+ inches so far today. It really started about 6 o'clock last night. We were driving through it on the highway, went all the way through 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon today. Heavy, and now is still coming down even on the lighter side, closer to a rain at this point. There are some parts in the area here in the Poconos primarily where the snowfall got up to 20 inches, Gadi. It's relevant in the sense that, first of all, of course, we had all of these wildfires and brush fires, hundreds of them from Pennsylvania to New York to Massachusetts to Rhode Island. Thankfully, this is going to help to elevate, or I should say, bring down that elevated fire risk. But what it also comes with it is a lot of power outages. There are about 100,000 tonight as of roughly 8 o'clock in the evening. What does that mean? When will crews be able to address those? We talked with PPL. PPL is the primary provider for the area. They said within about 24 hours on Saturday, most of those folks in 30-degree temperatures will get power back. Worst case scenario, Gadi, 48 hours out. You look over my shoulder and you see this giant tree that's just buckled in the middle of the street where it's not supposed to be. On the other side, there's some power lines that are also suspended over the street, crushed under the weight of the snow. So that just gives you a sense of what these crews are up against. We did speak with a number of people who lived here that talked about not just how they were surprised by the events, but also the need to restore power because of their particular situation. Take a listen.
Absolutely. I was overwhelmed because I wasn't expecting this.
So you said you have a disability or disabilities.
Yes, I have multiple disabilities, yeah.
Does the idea of not having power in your situation?
It's scary. Absolutely, it's scary.
Worried about the power, and I am worried about getting around because I'm not sure. Even though I'm shoveling, I'm hoping that my car can take me where I need to go.
And Gadi, it's not uncommon, unfortunately, in major weather events like this to see fatalities. Thankfully, there haven't been many so far, but we just did become aware of one of them. A 36-year-old man was driving his car in Monroe County, Pennsylvania, when he veered off to the wrong side of the road, spun out because of the weather conditions, and hit a box truck head on. So far, that's the only fatality that we're aware of, and authorities certainly are urging people to please use caution when they're on the roads. That's the very latest here in Scranton. Gadi, let me send it back to you.
Sam Brock, thank you. Let's bring in NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill, are these going to mess up a lot of people's Thanksgiving plans?
Well, these two storms should be gone, but, you know, people travel now. Like, some people will be traveling this weekend. Some people are going to travel in the middle of the week. It does look like this storm that's been hitting the west so hard. And right now, all our concerns are in the San Francisco Bay Area. They've picked up upwards of 5 inches of rain in just the last couple hours as the atmospheric river has intensified right over the top of them. So we'll watch that as we go through this evening. But it's a very difficult evening rush hour here. And we still have flash flood warnings for Oakland and South San Francisco. And one of the big stories for anyone traveling, we're going to be like more winter than fall. I know it's been a very warm fall, but be prepared for things to be much cooler than normal. Everywhere in blue here, and the darker blue means even colder, especially anyone in the middle of the country from Minneapolis to Chicago. I was looking at Minneapolis' forecast for Thanksgiving. It's like a high of like 25 degrees. And that's like the highest. The low will be like in the teens or almost single digits. So just be prepared if you're traveling somewhere to relatives that you're not really normally used to going there. It's going to be winter-like. We're also going to see dry in the west for Thanksgiving weekend, and then the east is going to be active. That's where we could have some problems, and I'll get to that in a second. So first, let's go fast forward to this Sunday. They say that Sunday is one of the busiest travel days out there. New storm comes into the west, not like the last one, not as big, but it's still going to have areas of rain, the high elevation snow we're going to have to deal with. So anyone flying out of San Francisco, Salt Lake City, looks like 2 of the airports, we could have some delays, maybe some cancellations. Now let's fast forward to what they call the busiest travel day. A lot of people driving, especially. Our storm comes into the middle of the country. We're going to have issues in Colorado, possibly the airports there in Denver. And this storm will move through the middle of the nation late in the day on Wednesday with the ice and snow mix. Watch out, Kansas City to St. Louis. And then in the east, Gadi, this is on Thanksgiving Day, a big storm possible with a lot of rain, maybe even some snow in the northeast.
Yeah, a whole lot of rain and a whole lot of turkey there. I get confused. It feels like with the weather changing so much, it's hard to keep track of what is normal. But is this technically a little late in the year to be seeing the first major snowfall?
I'd say a lot of these areas that saw snow, it was a little late for seeing the first snowflakes. But the amount of snow was pretty unusual for November's. I mean, this storm had packed a punch, and it was a heavy, wet snow. So usually that compacts more. The fact that some of these areas picked up over a foot, nearly 2 feet of snow is, you know, pretty historic. I mean, High Point, New Jersey, this is one of the biggest snowstorms they've had in years. Pennsylvania, the highest total was 17. Catskills was right around 17 inches. And that's why we have so many people that lost power. The leaves were off the trees, but there was just so much weight on the branches. A lot of the big cities, though, lower elevations, they did pick up like an inch or 2 or 3, but the roads remain just fine, so that hasn't been much of an issue. And we're not going to see a lot of additional snow this weekend, just some of the high peaks up in northern New England. But Gadi, this was a storm to remember. A lot of people don't see storms this big before Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Bill Cairns, thank you. And guess what time it is? It's that time going into the evening when President-elect Trump starts sending out a flurry of cabinet picks like he's done daily for about a week now. And just in, Trump has named billionaire Scott Bessent as his pick for Treasury Secretary, according to two sources. He's been one of Trump's closest economic advisors in the last few months, and if confirmed, will be in charge of overseeing big campaign promises like sweeping tax cuts. Next, Trump tapping Congresswoman Lori Chavez Dreamer for Labor Secretary. She just lost her re-election bid in Oregon. Trump also announcing the Director of Office Management and Budget as Russell Thurlow Vaught. He was the director of OMB back in 2017 as well. And finally, Dr. Janet Neshiwat for Surgeon General, and former Congressman Dr. Dave Weldon for Director of the CDC. All of this is happening as we are also seeing increasing scrutiny for his new pick for Attorney General, Pam Bondi, which we're going to get to in just a second. Then there's the person who Bondi has replaced, former Congressman Matt Gaetz, who today talked about not returning to Congress and his decision to withdraw from consideration yesterday.
Pam Bondi's confirmation won't have some of the sharp edges that mine would have. It won't take the same long process. So AG Bondi will be able to start implementing those Trump policies right away. So we're ready on day one.
All right, so let's bring in NBC White House correspondent Aaron Gilchrist from West Palm Beach, Florida. Aaron, so much to dive into here. Let's start with Scott Bessent. Who is he and what can we expect?
You're right. Really, it was the last half an hour or so we started to get this long flurry of names for appointments, more than I can sort of keep track of with my notes here. But you're right. Scott Bessent was one of the names that we had been waiting for. We knew that he was in the mix, being considered for Treasury Secretary. He is someone who has had Donald Trump's ear for some time now. He was a key economic advisor during the campaign. He was also a big-time supporter of the Trump campaign, pouring lots of money into that effort. He is a hedge fund manager who many on Wall Street see as a good choice. We know there was some criticism from Elon Musk about Bessent before he was named as Donald Trump's choice for Treasury Secretary. That criticism saying that he would be more business as usual, and still we see now that Donald Trump has selected him as the person he wants to lead the effort to create more tax cuts, to lead the effort potentially to create tariffs that would impact other countries, to lead the effort in just setting fiscal and economic policy for this country that, of course, would touch other economies around the world. And as you noted, Gadi, just one of several announcements we're getting tonight from the Trump transition team.
Yeah, so many announcements. We don't even have time to read between the lines here. So let's just move straight to Russell Vaught. He's a familiar face, right, to Trump's cabinet room, but also a key figure in the whole Project 2025 thing. So who is he and what did he do between 2020 and now?
Yeah, you're right. Russell Vaught was the director of the Office of Management and Budget during the first Trump administration. He was someone who was a key figure in helping to map out some fiscal policy initiatives as well, and how the White House wanted Congress to work with it to spend money. We also know that he was a co-author of Project 2025 and that he served in a capacity where he with Project 2025, he was a writer of some of the policy positions that were part of that document. He also served as a policy manager during the Republican National Committee's development of its policy statements as well. And Vaught's appointment comes as a familiar source tells NBC News that transition officials have been taking a look at the personnel database that was developed as a part of Project 2025, looking at some of those people as potential people to come into the administration. And so now it seems as though, at least for him, and there have been several others who at least had some connection to Project 2025 who have been tapped for different roles, some of them roles that need to be confirmed by the Senate, some of them roles that are more part of the workforce for this administration.
Aaron Gilchrist, keeping track of so much breaking news tonight. Aaron, I don't know how you do it, but thank you so much. And Sean Diddy Combs is back in court today, hoping to get out on bail before his sex trafficking trial starts in May. Now, this is Combs's third try to make bail, with the decision to come next week. NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas has more.
Hey there, that's right. The judge has not made a decision as to whether or not Combs will be able to be out on bail ahead of his criminal trial on May 5th. The judge has told prosecutors and defense attorneys to file paperwork by Monday at noon on how Combs would communicate with others if he were to be set free. I mean, he said he'll make his decision on bail next week. I mean, look, I was in that courtroom listening to both sides, and you have federal prosecutors saying that Combs has been allegedly obstructing justice by taking part in three-way calls and using inmates' pack numbers, as they're called, to make calls to individuals. They say that he's been trying to tamper with witnesses and taint a jury pool by doing things like his recent birthday post on Instagram, where his family is seen gathered in what looks like a kitchen in their home, talking to their father on speakerphone. And the prosecution says that this is all an orchestrated attempt to win over potential jurors in his favor. But then you have Combs's legal team saying that that is under his First Amendment and Sixth Amendment constitutional rights to be able to do things like posting on social media, even from behind bars, or talking to his family members on his birthday. They also talk about the fact that if he were to be released, they have a plan set in place for him to live in an apartment in Manhattan's Upper East Side with 24-hour security. That would be 2 security officers inside a 3-bedroom apartment, another security officer in the lobby, that he would only have communication with his attorneys. He wouldn't have access to cell phones or the internet. And what his legal team is saying is that actually he has almost more freedom in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York, which is a notorious jail with very tough conditions, that this 3-way calling and using inmates' pack numbers wouldn't be an issue if he was on this sort of house arrest awaiting criminal trial. And then something else that came up at the very beginning of the hearing were these 16 pages of notes that were said to have been wrongfully obtained from his jail cell during a sweep last week that was a routine sweep of the jail, where a judge earlier this week decided that those should have been under attorney-client privilege, that it did have potentially things that had to do with Combs's defense ahead of trial. And so Combs's team is also saying he can't properly prepare for his trial, that is part of his constitutional right to be able to prepare for trial, and that he didn't even have a laptop until today. So it was very animated. I wouldn't say it was heated, but very animated on both sides, and both sides making a strong case. It was very unclear as to which way the judge was leaning. He asked a lot of questions, and again, he said that he's going to make his decision next week, and if the judge decides to keep him in jail ahead of his criminal trial, he could continue to appeal. But again, his trial is set for May 5th. Back to you.
Chloe Malas, thank you. Now, first it was the onions at McDonald's, and they said we got to watch out for carrots. And now there has been yet another recall here in the United States thanks to E. coli. This time it is ground beef, a whopping 160,000 pounds of it that has so far made more than a dozen people sick. Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Mara Barrett. Mara, what do we know about where this is coming from?
It's concerning, Gadi. More than 15 people were reporting that they've fallen ill coming out of Minnesota, but they traced back this specific case of E. coli back to a meat packer in Detroit, Michigan. It's Wolverine Packing Co. It impacts those beef companies that you see on your screen, Davis Creek Meats, 1855, for example, and it's really affecting those fresh products, those with the use-by date of November 14th or frozen products with a production date of October 22nd, and that's all indicated on the packaging, and so that's something to really look out for if people might have it. We should note, though, that the Wolverine Packing Co. said that they're completing an internal investigation to figure out where this went wrong. But they also emphasized to NBC News that these products aren't sold in grocery stores. So it's unlikely for consumers to have these in their own refrigerators, freezers, more likely to come from restaurants. And so that's why any business owners, anyone that might know restaurant owners in their area, should encourage them to throw them away, Gadi.
And Mara, this is the third big E. coli contamination panic recently. What is going on? Are these all connected? They don't seem like, I mean, I don't know about the supply chains, but they don't seem like they have a common denominator.
Not that we've seen, but it's been very hard to keep track of, obviously. But ultimately, E. coli comes from it's a bacteria that happens in the farm fields as it goes through production. It can be very common, but the problem is it can't be washed away. And so the CDC, the FDA, warning that the only way to eliminate this bacteria is by cooking the meat or the product to a certain degree. You have to cook it more than 160 degrees Fahrenheit, so you want to make sure you're testing those temperatures. And if you you do feel sick, you're seeing those prevention steps and strategies on your screen or other symptoms. If you're feeling abdominal cramps, stomach pain, nausea, intense fever, it's important to go to the doctor. And if you do test positive for E. coli, especially as we're seeing all these outbreaks, it's really important to talk and contact health officials so they can get a handle on what the outbreak really looks like, Gadi.
Good advice. Mara Barrett, thank you. And now to an NBC News exclusive. We are now learning that a senior Hezbollah leader has been killed by an Israeli airstrike, and we're told that the Hezbollah commander helped plan one of the most sophisticated attacks on the U.S. Army back during the Iraq War. NBC's Dan DeLuce has more.
Gadi, U.S. defense officials have told our colleague Courtney Kuby that a key Hezbollah commander, Ali Musa Dakdouk, who was blamed for a sophisticated and audacious attack on an American base in 2007 in Iraq, has been killed in an Israeli airstrike in Syria. It's not clear when the strike took place exactly or precisely where in Syria, but this Hezbollah figure has been killed, and he orchestrated an attack on a U.S. Iraqi base in Karbala in 2007, where they were wearing American uniforms, carrying American weapons, and spoke English, and managed to make their way into this U.S. base. They killed one U.S. soldier, captured 4 others, left the base. They were pursued by attack helicopters. They ditched their vehicles and killed the 4 Americans that they had taken captive. And later he was captured by U.S. forces. He was interrogated and acknowledged that that whole operation had been masterminded by Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. He was eventually handed over to Iraqi authorities when American forces left Iraq at the end of 2011. He was the last prisoner to be handed over at that time, but the Iraqi authorities later released him, which caused anger in Washington. But now we learn that he has been killed in an Israeli airstrike. Gadi?
Dan DeLuce, thank you. And don't go anywhere. We are just getting started. Up next, picking up guns to try to fight a crisis of violence inside an educational push one group is trying out in Philadelphia. And later this hour, are you seeing random things on Instagram that are not at all interesting and have you hating your algorithm? Well, you might soon get a chance for a reset. We're going to look into Meta's thinking in tonight's Future of Everything. Plus, up, and away, then back down to Earth. Blue Origin's 9th space tourism flight went off without a hitch. Passengers sharing their emotional experience as we all wonder about the industry's future.
They kept saying, like, that's our planet. That's our planet. It was the same feeling I got when my kids were born. And I was like, that's my baby. That's my baby. And I like had that same feeling where I'm like seeing it for the first time.
Hey, welcome back. And here are some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. Next week was supposed to be Donald Trump's sentencing in his New York hush money trial, but now the president-elect won't have to worry about it for a while. State Judge Juan Merchan ruled this morning that the sentencing has been postponed indefinitely. Merchan said that he will hear arguments from the defense as to why the case should be dismissed outright. And a teen rodeo star from Florida is fighting for his life after he was kicked by a bull. It happened last Friday when Walker Smith was performing at a bull riding event in South Florida. Officials say he's in stable condition, but his parents are really concerned about his brain after he went through some mini strokes. In New York, Governor Kathy Hochul said a new and improved plan for congestion pricing just passed its final hurdle. Federal officials gave the green light this morning, and starting January 5th, people will have to pay $9 to enter the heart of Manhattan, but a hearing next month over federal lawsuits challenging the plan could stop the entire thing. So right now, you are looking at a banana duct taped to a wall, and a California crypto mogul bought it for $6.2 million. The pricey produce is a piece of artwork called The Comedian, created by an Italian artist, and the owner, Justin Sun, says he plans to eat his winnings, but he's going to keep the duct tape. And the Texas Board of Ed voted to approve Bible-based curriculum in elementary schools. It's optional, but schools who implement the lesson plans will receive extra funding. The material could find itself in classrooms as early as next school year. And gun violence is still the #1 cause of death for kids and teens in America, and this crisis has hit Philadelphia extremely hard. But now, there's a growing group of young people fighting to keep their Second Amendment rights in the city. And NBC's Stay Tuned reporter Maya Eaglin has more.
Hey there. Yeah, many of the young men I spoke to said at the end of the day, they want to protect themselves and their family members. Now, this is an issue in the city of Philadelphia that disproportionately impacts communities of color, with 80% of the victims being black men in the city. The folks I spoke to say they hope that firearms education can start to help reduce the amount of violence in the city. Take a look.
Ever since the pandemic hit, just been an overflowing of just guns. I actually lost my older brother, named Ronald, due to gun violence.
Isaiah Stanton grew up in Philly, where gun violence has been a consistent issue. As of October 1st, 2024, there were 841 shootings in the city of Philadelphia. About 21% were fatal.
Why did you want to own a gun?
Just to ensure my safety, not only for me, but also for my family. Exercising my Second Amendment right.
Isaiah is part of a growing number of young people in the city who, instead of shying away from guns, is completely leaning in, despite being directly impacted by the gun violence crisis.
How many people in the room, by the show of hands, someone in your family has been affected by gun violence?
That's Terrell Crew. He and his wife, Carice, started an organization called That Gun Talk after Carice was robbed in the city.
I believe that we can make a difference and we can make the change in our community by being educated. Grip, stance. I aim, focus.
The couple says they aren't trying to completely solve gun violence or end it, but provide harm reduction educational resources to a community that's been deeply impacted by these deaths. They hosted an educational workshop and open range shooting day for Philly teens and young adults outside the city.
I think some people on the outside looking in might think, well, if you want gun violence to go down, get rid of all the guns. What's your response to that?
How would that happen? What are they going to do? Go raid everybody's house?
Good. All right, range is hot. We're shooting. Range is hot.
Criminals will always have access to firearms. And if you get rid of your firearm, then, God forbid, if you had to defend your life or your family, how would you be able to do that?
While some advocates call for a ban on some or all firearms, there's research that shows increasing responsible gun education and storage can reduce the number of suicides, deaths that contribute to the illegal gun market, and unintentional killings.
Just because you own a firearm doesn't mean that you take yourself to danger.
But Adam Garber with Ceasefire PA says education alone isn't enough and is advocating for legislative changes in the state.
I think education for the public and gun owners about what responsible gun ownership is a piece of the pie, right? It's a part of how we're going to solve this problem. At the same time, what we know is the states around the nation with the strongest gun safety laws on the books have the lowest gun death rates. So I think it's a both and situation, not an either or.
I think there is a lot of trauma and sadness within the Black community and guns, with police shootings, school shootings, community shootings. How do you reconcile those two things?
Police, communities, politicians, we have to bring people together to work on these issues.
De-escalation is important. And I also go hand in hand with self-control, and just choosing a different path and just sticking towards that.
Now, Adam Garber from Ceasefire PA also told me that one of the biggest challenges is that the city of Philadelphia is preempted by the state, meaning that they can't make their own laws or ordinances. And that's something he and others have had to navigate around to find solutions. Gadi?
Fascinating report, Maya. Thank you. And coming up, serious misconduct allegations against some of President-elect Trump's cabinet picks. But history tells us picks by other presidents have been canceled for far less. We are taking a look way back. But first, you got to see this. NASA shared some pretty rocking videos captured by the Chandra X-ray Observatory and the Hubble Space Telescope. Your eyes, they're not fooling you. That cloud of blue stars does look a lot like a guitar, and it's not just any guitar. I mean, you could say a flame-throwing guitar with that red matter floating above it. Astronomers have dubbed it the Guitar Nebula, and it's obviously a rock star. We'll be right back. Now, tonight we are talking cabinet controversies and the scandals that took down some of history's would-be presidential advisors. This inner circle tradition goes back to the days of George Washington. His cabinet was a group of just four: the Secretaries of State, Treasury, War, and the Attorney General. And as America grew, so did the cabinet, evolving to keep up with the pace of the federal government's growing complexity and size. But nowadays, the executive-level cabinet includes 15 departments, all needing Senate approval. But as history shows us, the road to confirmation can be a rocky one. Throughout American history, the president's cabinet choices have reflected their vision for the country.
Very important positions, the finest I could get.
Navigating the political process, not always that easy.
Sir, some of your recent and higher-ranking appointees seem to be running into steady and increasing trouble in Congress.
It is rather baffling why he cannot be, after all these months, cannot be confirmed is something that's completely beyond me.
In 1959, President Eisenhower's pick for Commerce Secretary, a man named Louis Strauss, was rejected by the Senate, partly over his beef with Robert Oppenheimer.
I'm denied. Yeah?
I'm afraid so, sir.
All right.
Time magazine calling him the first cabinet appointee in U.S. history rejected because of his personality. It would be another 30 years before it happened again.
An outside Towers hotel gathers what are the first signs of political death in Washington, the television crew.
In 1989, former Senator John Tower was rejected for Secretary of Defense, mostly for his alcohol abuse and other issues.
I have encountered the nominee in a condition, lack of sobriety, as well as with women to whom he was not married.
The status quo, president's cabinet picks had to be almost perfect. Any sign of indecency would lead to a withdrawal.
Senator, I have said to you and the others here that I've done something that I deeply regret. I've said it's wrong.
Bill Clinton's pick for Attorney General never made it through after having a nanny who was an undocumented immigrant.
The White House and Congress had underestimated the public's outrage over Zoe Baird's use of illegal aliens for child care.
Or George W. Bush's pick for Labor Secretary.
Linda Chavez, who has been embroiled in an undocumented worker controversy.
I've not led a perfect life. I don't think anybody has. I'm not Mother Teresa.
Or the back taxes that ended President Barack Obama's pick for Health Secretary.
The man who was supposed to tackle health care, Tom Daschle.
And I deeply apologize.
And then there were the mean tweets that derailed President Joe Biden's pick for the Office of Management and Budget.
Senators taking issue with some of her past tweets, calling them harsh and divisive.
Did you mean them?
I really feel badly about them, Senator.
Did you mean them?
I feel badly about them.
That's how it used to be. But now, only upcoming Senate confirmation hearings will tell. And if there's anyone who knows about the history of cabinet nominees, it is Michael Beschloss, NBC News presidential historian. Michael, it feels like we have gone from very little things disqualifying cabinet picks to basically a lot of these picks being lightning rods. How does it seem to you?
Well, I think you're right, because, you know, remember the first one that you mentioned, Louis Strauss, at the time of Eisenhower, they said that you showed a Time magazine that said that he was rejected because of his personality. Well, the good news for modern day is that the people who have been under scrutiny this last week, it's been a lot more than personality.
Is there a word for a political strategy of flooding the zone with controversy? I mean, it looks like back in the day, anything could have gotten you out. And I have a feeling that the students of political science these days are learning a whole different curriculum than I learned when I was in college. What is that called, this flooding the field?
I think it's called Donald Trump's way of being a president or president-elect. And so far, it looks as if it may be successful, because in the case of the Attorney General, we had Matt Gaetz, who obviously was rejected by a number of senators. And now we have Pam Bondi, who probably will follow very similar policies, but those won't seem as controversial after Gaetz is gone. We may see the same thing in the case of a Secretary of Defense or Secretary of HHS. Everything old is new again.
And your thoughts on Trump's flurry of cabinet picks? There were 9 announced today. Anybody stand out in particular?
Well, the interesting thing is that, you know, there have been some people who would say that each of these people would be cabinet picks that you could never imagine in any other administration. Take a look at Marco Rubio, a standard Republican Secretary of State. True of a number of others, including probably Scott Bessent, who is as you know, announced by Donald Trump as his Secretary of Treasury just this evening. So this is going to be a cabinet of people who are there to break furniture, change the country, change the government, but they're going to be sitting side by side with some people who could have been in the cabinet of George W. Bush.
I think we'll see if any furniture is broken in Congress,
right,
and possibly at the confirmation hearings before that. But Michael Beschloss, thanks so much for joining us.
Always interesting. Love seeing you. Thank you, Gadi.
Sure. And still ahead, a California teacher fired after showing support for a free Palestine, while she says school leaders used a double standard to judge her. That's coming up, so stay tuned. Hey, welcome back. Let's take a quick look around the world. Ukraine's postponed a sitting of parliament today over security concerns, with a warning to members to keep their families out of Kyiv's government district. Now, this comes after Vladimir Putin said Russia hit Ukraine with a new hypersonic missile. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called Russia's missile strike a, quote, international crime. And officials in a number of countries are warning about drinking alcohol that contains methanol. Now, this is coming after at least 6 tourists, including one American, died after a night of drinking in Laos. Apparently, methanol gets snuck into drinks there to add an extra kick, but it is super dangerous. The U.S. State Department says if you're traveling, maybe skip the homemade brew and any suspiciously cheap cocktails. And UFC fighter Conor McGregor has been found liable for sexual assault in Ireland. A jury there awarded a woman over $250,000 after she accused McGregor of raping her at a hotel in Dublin. She says it's caused her PTSD and even claimed that McGregor threatened her life. McGregor denied the allegations and gave no comment after the verdict. And a false scare at the U.S. Embassy in London. The place was shut down today after a bomb threat, but it turns out it was just a dummy device. London police sorted it out pretty quick, but all public appointments got canceled for the day. And now to Oakland, where a high school English teacher was fired this summer for wearing a Free Palestine pin. The teacher, Erin Donovan, saying that she put the pin on as a sign of solidarity for students who might be grieving about the war in Gaza. But the school asked her to remove the pin the very next day, and when she refused to do so, she was fired for insubordination. Bigat Shaban of the NBC Bay Area Investigative Unit has more.
For the first time in years, English teacher Erin Donovan doesn't have any students to teach. She was fired, not for what she taught, but what she wore.
A Free Palestine pin.
How soon after putting it on did the school ask you to take it off?
I got an email the very next day.
Her principal at Bishop O'Dowd High School in Oakland told her some students expressed discomfort about the pin and its negative impact on their ability to learn. Donovan says the year-long war in Gaza and the large-scale humanitarian crisis that followed pushed her to put on the pin as a sign of solidarity with students who may be grieving. But some argue the movement to free Palestine from Israeli occupation has also been associated with calls to use violence against Israel.
If the pin made some of your students feel uncomfortable, why not just take it off?
I take issue with the idea that classrooms are supposed to be places where we feel comfortable. If you are learning something, you are feeling discomfort. It's hard. It's vulnerable.
Donovan says the school repeatedly warned her she'd be let go unless she stopped wearing the pin, but she refused to take it off.
It feels weird to even just be talking about being fired. There are teachers in Palestine who have lost their jobs, not because of a pin, but because their schools no longer exist, because their students are dead.
Donovan says the school has a history of embracing political causes, like the Black Lives Matter movement, and even regularly praying for those in Ukraine.
All of these things are deeply political, and so it's problematic when there's no really clear policy that says, well, what is political and what is social justice, and how are we deciding what things are okay to take a stand on and what aren't.
It was just over a year ago when Hamas attacked a music festival and surrounding villages in Israel, killing some 1,200 people and kidnapping more than 250 others, according to the U.S. State Department. Palestine's health ministry says Israel's ensuing military response has killed more than 40,000 and has decimated much of Gaza. The conflict abroad continues to test the boundaries of free speech here at home. Earlier this year, pro-Palestinian demonstrations and encampments blanketed college campuses, at times leading to clashes with law enforcement.
It is not tolerated and it is not acceptable.
Top university leaders were summoned to appear before Congress, chastised over their handling, with some ultimately forced to resign.
Today, schools and workplaces are still grappling with how to let students and employees express themselves without creating an environment that leaves others feeling offended or even unsafe.
To me, it's sort of contrary to the educational mission of the institution to say certain political viewpoints are out of bounds.
David Sloss is a constitutional law professor at Santa Clara University and has been tracking the impact of those widespread student protests. Some institutions have since adopted new rules to limit protesting by banning encampments and restricting campus access to only students and staff.
From the university's standpoint, they're trying to minimize risk of disruption, but maybe that goes too far.
Public universities and even private institutions that receive public funding are largely prohibited from infringing on a person's right to free speech. But private employers, like your own office, have much more leeway to make their own rules about what's allowed and what isn't in the workplace. Both pro-Israel and pro-Palestine organizations report spikes in complaints from U.S. employees feeling uncomfortable at work because of their stance on the Gaza war.
They are working in fear. They are looking for new jobs. And in some cases, they're facing termination.
Zahra Bilu is with CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations.
Each community wants to live in peace.
And Tyler Gregory is with the Jewish Community Relations Council. The two groups have differing views on the war, but agree on the importance of having a respectful dialogue. If all sides can't be equally heard, then they both concede it might be best to restrict all political speech in hopes of avoiding the kind of controversy involving Aaron Donovan and Bishop O'Dowd High.
One way this school and any other employer can simplify things is by saying we won't allow any pins. Right? We wouldn't be having this conversation if they hadn't been inconsistent.
What we need to do is create an environment where those folks who are dealing with active trauma right now feel safe.
Bishop O'Dowd High School didn't respond to our interview request, but in emails to Aaron Donovan, the principal said, as a private school, it has significant discretion to regulate employee speech, adding, teachers have repeatedly been advised to maintain neutrality on controversial issues as professionals with positional power over young students.
Why shouldn't you be expected to hold a neutral position when it comes to polarizing issues?
There's a difference between students knowing that you have an opinion and that you have a stand on something and you explicitly teaching them that. And I wasn't explicitly teaching anything.
It's hypocritical, she says, and confusing that as an openly queer woman teaching at a private Catholic school, what ultimately got her fired was her support of a war-torn country more than half a world away. With the investigative unit, I'm Gadi Shaban.
Gadi, thank you. And before we go, it is time for the future of everything. And we're talking a refresh for Instagram. And we're not talking about how the app looks, why Meta is saying, all right, to algorithm resets and what that's going to mean for your scrolling. Plus, on the edge of space, Blue Origin's newest passengers share what their experience what was like up above all of us, what's ahead for the space tourism, and yes, we're even talking about the sky-high costs. Hey, welcome back. In tonight's Future of Everything, you ever get on social media and then you're scrolling random stuff and then you're like, man, my algorithm really used to know me, but these days it just doesn't get me at all. Like, why am I even seeing the most effective way to gift wrap stuff for Christmas? I don't care. Well, if your algorithm has gone a little haywire, Meta has just announced it'll be testing the ability for you to reset, quote, recommendations, meaning a fresh start for your feed and new posts and accounts that you might never have seen before. Let's bring in NBC News personal technology analyst and senior personal technology columnist at the Wall Street Journal, Joanna Stern, to talk a little bit more about this. Joanna, great to see you. Given that these algorithms have been, they've learned about us for years and years and years now, but they do seem a little off these days. Does this tell you that consumers are getting sick of their feeds, or is there something going on in those algorithms? What's going on?
Yeah, I think the thing about algorithms is it's always been a little bit of a black box, right? We don't really know why it's showing us something. And presumably, and usually it's because we looked at something once and it remembers, these apps remember everything about us. But that's a long time to remember things. And so sometimes you might look at something and you might be interested. I heard your example there about wrapping paper. You're not interested in that. Okay,
it's because I'm an expert wrapper already, you know, like the duct tape and the foil does it just fine. Thank you.
Good. I'll send all my presents to you. But there has not been a good way to really influence or tell the algorithm, here's what I do want to see, here's what I don't want to see. There are subtle controls, and there are controls where you can say, I don't want to see this anymore. But there's really never been a way to just say, I want to start fresh. And that's what Instagram is doing here. They're giving us a reset button to say, hey, let's do day 0. Let's start again.
And Meta is saying that this reset is particularly important when it comes to teen safety on the app. Does this move actually help that, or is this just, you know, saying that they are taking that very seriously?
Well, teens and a lot of reporting about how teens have used Instagram has said that a lot of the content that you might engage with then becomes sort of a rabbit hole, right? You might look at something, maybe it's sexual nature, maybe there's more about depression, and then the app starts showing you more and more and more of that to the point where it can be overwhelming and bad for your mental health. And so that is one of the reasons Instagram is saying they are doing this here, is that they want to give teens and everyone, but they're saying this is going to be beneficial for these new teen accounts, especially to clear the slate, to say, you know what, I don't want to see anything more about eating disorders or depression or whatever bad thing you want to insert in there.
And Joanna, do you think this has to do with competing with TikTok at all?
I think it does. I think this all really has to do with the strong regulatory pressure and lawsuits that Meta is facing about how teens are using this and the impact on mental health, and the fact that Meta has not paid enough attention, or if they have paid attention, haven't had the tools there for teens, for parents to control these services. And we're seeing now a lot more control come to the platform.
This reset can't come soon enough. I can't wait to try it out. Joanna Stern, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And finally tonight, a ride of a lifetime for 6 people today, lifting off in the Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket. And even though it was just 10 minutes, as NBC's Marissa Parra shows us, it had a huge impact.
1, ignition.
Tonight, a spectacular journey bringing us closer to the stars. A bit of heaven for the 6 passengers on board Blue Origin. When they go up, they take all of us with them, seeing our sometimes troubled planet in a whole new light. For stepping back on Earth and into the arms of loved ones, the world's newest astronauts, heads still in the clouds, gushing about the journey of a lifetime.
I see so much space, and I kept saying, like, that's our planet. That's our planet. It was the same feeling I got when my kids were born, and I was like, that's my baby. It was beautiful.
Blue Origin's 9th crewed flight carried history on board. A married couple, now the first to make it to space together twice. And Emily Calandrelli, of Netflix and YouTube fame as Space Gal. Now, the 100th woman in space. Their 10-minute journey, a lifetime reminder that a new perspective can make even the biggest problems seem so small.
Seeing the world from up that high, where you don't see the borders, you don't see the divisions, you don't see all of the lines that divide us. We're all one people. We're on this very fragile, small planet.
Proving wonders still happen. You just need to look around to see them.
And let's bring in Marissa Parra now to talk about this launch, the overview effect. I cannot get enough about hearing what it looks like up there. And so cool to see Space Gal. So many people have been following her journey for so long. Historic day for space travel. But Marissa, I gotta ask, like, how much did it cost for these tourists to go up for that 10 minutes in orbit?
It's a great question. I don't know if you're asking for a friend or for yourself.
Yes, of course. Yes,
right,
yes.
this friend.
Yeah, the discount. I need to know about the discount, please.
So great questions. I can tell you the good news that I can tell you first, Gadi, is that it doesn't take as much training as some of the other missions that I've talked about on here. A lot of times you and I are talking about those missions to the International Space Station, which takes 6-8 months sometimes, and a lot of training. Those are government-funded missions. And the difference here, of course, this is a private company, and they do not have to disclose how expensive it is. But here's the thing. The passengers who have already hitched a ride on Blue Origin have already spoken about how much it was. So I think the short answer is you can go as long as you or someone you know is willing to pony up tens of millions of dollars, because on the lowest end, Gadi, the lowest number I've seen and heard is roughly $30 million. So the most expensive 10 minutes of your life, perhaps. But hey, from what we heard from the astronauts, it sounds like it was worth it, Gadi.
Yeah, it sure does. What's next for Blue Origin and space tourism? When's their next launch?
So they're doing a whole lot more other than just space tourism. And I'll point out this week, of course, we saw that 6th test flight with that Starship with SpaceX. And this is the same week that NASA said that they tapped both SpaceX and Blue Origin for the future Artemis mission. So they've tasked them both with coming up with these cargo landing systems, if you will, for those future Artemis missions. And I'll remind you, that is the mission to bring humans back to the moon for the first time in decades. And so what those landing systems would do would allow humans to not only spend more time on the moon's surface, but also be more efficient using robots, if you will, to explore more of the moon's surface. So a whole lot more than just launching people into space, especially rich people, for a joyride, Gadi. Blue Origin has some big missions as well, trying to, once again, as all of these companies are trying to do, make space inhabitable for future generations.
Yeah, for all of us, hopefully. And you don't have to remind me of anything, Marissa. I know what you're doing. I think that our bosses, they watch this and they're like, we're sending one of those two to space. And I'm scared it might be you. Like I'm like, she's scuba certified now too? Oh no. So yeah, I'm brushing up on my Russian. It's you versus me. Who's going up to space first? Marissa Parra, thanks so much. And that's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gadi Schwartz. We'll see you here on Monday, but until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.